Hello, everyone. My name is Charles Rayburn. I am a Senior Manager of Customer Success here at Servicenow. This is the office hour about Jira integration, office hour number 29. For those who are listening to the recording, let me know if you have any questions or comments based upon what you're hearing. We have a great session set up for you guys today. The office hour format is, as always, the first 30 minutes is for a senior subject matter expert here at ServiceNow to talk about and ground us in the actual topic at nature at hand, which is the Jira integration with Itbm. And then for the remaining 30 minutes is open to any questions and answers that we are looking to have from you as customers. So I have here Balaji, who's our senior subject matter expert on this call. Balaji, if you can introduce yourself, and then now the floor is yours.
Sure. Thanks, Charles. Hello, everyone. I'm Balaji. I'm the product manager on the Agile team, responsible for the Jira integration and also Azure DevOps integration and the Agile team's product. Being with Itbm for close to about 7 years now, I've worked on various products in the Itbm suite, including demand projects, and now currently dealing with Agile teams. So yeah, that's about me. Let's get started. I have a quick presentation. I'll run through the presentation for a few minutes, and then I'll jump into the demo, and I'll show you the actual working product, right? And then we could have our Q&A. So let me share my presentation. All right, so this is the agenda for the presentation right now. So we will go through the use cases, and then we'll talk briefly about what did we hear from our customers as we spoke with them. And a lot of times we get questions on what is the difference between Jira Spoke and the out-of-the-box integration. So we will clarify some of those and also explain how our integration works and a little bit on the architecture followed by the demo. So the first use case is the primary Itbm use case, right? So we have ideas, demands, and project governance happening in ServiceNow, and product managers and development team is actually working on Jira for their day-to-day activities, right? So, but then a lot of times as a part of the yearly planning or quarterly planning, the business owners actually go and create the high-level epics and demands in ServiceNow. And then they also go and create the same equivalent in Jira. And then the developers actually go break down that epic into stories, and then they continue to work on it. And they come back, so the product owner tends to update in both the systems, right? So that's something that happens all the time. So that's one use case where you're Itbm customer and you're doing high-level planning in ServiceNow, and your developers are in Jira. The second use case is the developers are using Jira for their day-to-day activities, and the operational work is actually coming through ServiceNow, right? So currently the way people are doing it is they have an incident in ServiceNow. Let's say an incident gets escalated. The first level support looks into it, and then they say, okay, now it's time for the developers to look into it. So that is when the person actually goes and creates an equivalent incident or a story in Jira. And then once the developers complete working on that story in Jira, they come back to the incident and go and update the incident status so that the incident workflow goes on, right? So currently people are updating in two systems, which most people don't want to do, right? So this is a common pattern that we noticed from what, as we spoke to our customers, right? So one primary challenge is no swivel chair updates on multiple systems, right? And then they're looking for a seamless synchronization of work items or issues between ServiceNow and Jira. And it has to be two-way synchronization, right? And this has to be easy to configure, and the implementation turnaround is expected to be really quick. So let's, before we talk about how our product works, let's look at the differences between the out-of-the-box integration and the spoke. So the out-of-the-box integration works based on a convention, right? So when I say convention, we have a rigid association between an assignment group in ServiceNow to a project in Jira. So that's the convention that we have defined as a part of the out-of-the-box integration. So what I mean by that is, so we use assignment group as a trigger to export stories or epics from ServiceNow into Jira. Whereas with Spoke, it's configuration. You could actually go and it's a flexible architecture. You could actually go and build integration the way you like it, but then you will have to build a flow for every team or a project that you're onboarding into ServiceNow. Whereas with our out-of-the-box integration, onboarding teams can be as simple as making an entry to a table. So I will show you how that works in a few minutes. So apart from that, we also support custom fields and custom workflows as a configuration, right? So whereas with the flows, you will actually have to go and modify the flow to add custom fields or custom workflows. So if you have like 4 or 5 different projects, you will have 5 different flows. And for each project, if you want to go and add a few custom fields, you will have to modify 5 different flows to achieve this behavior. Whereas with our out-of-the-box integration, you will be able to make an entry in a table, and then the flow that we have in place will actually pick up the mapping from the tables and utilize those mapping and create the work items in issues in Jira. And similarly, it works for import as well. And we have native two-way integration support, whereas you need to manually configure the inbound integration with the spoke. It's not too complex, but then if you have multiple Jira instances, you will need to go and configure it manually for every Jira instance that you have. So let's look at the out-of-the-box integration capabilities. We do support multiple Jira instances. We've noticed customers who have multiple Jira instances. In some cases, it was as big as 16 instances, right? So we have support for multiple instances. And we do support issue mapping configuration at the project level. So what I mean by that is in Jira, you will be able to go and configure configure the forms and fields at each project level, right? So if you want to have custom configuration for different projects, we do support that as well. And so these are some of the things that we support, right? So we support custom issue types. So out of the box, you have stories and epics and Scrum task or story task in Jira. Let's say you go and add custom issue types like demand or an initiative. You can actually bring those initiatives and demands in ServiceNow by a simple configuration. So we do support custom issue types. Along with that, we support custom field types as well. So if you have any custom fields added in Jira, we'll be able to bring that in. And similarly, if you have custom workflows, workflows is nothing but an equivalent of state choices in ServiceNow. So if you have custom workflows in Jira, we support that as well. And out of the box, we do support synchronization of attachments and comments, and also the assignee field. So if you pick an assignee in Jira, we update the assignee in ServiceNow as well. So we use the email address as the unique identifier to populate the user in both the systems. So a quick architectural diagram. So we do use webhooks. So while creating a connection, what you would do is you'll actually go and define the Jira instance, provide the connection and the credential details, and you will actually go and hit connect as a button. So that will test the connection and also register the webhook in Jira, right? So once the webhook registration is successful, we come and update the connection status in ServiceNow. And similarly, if you, so let's, you could take a screenshot, or maybe this presentation would be available in the recording. So let me jump into the demo, and then I'll show you how this works in the product. All right, so the way you do that is after you install the integration application from the store, you navigate to Agile Jira integration. Under Agile Jira integration, you have a link that says Jira instances. So if you click on it, so that's where you can actually define multiple instances as well. So in my case, I've already configured one instance, but for the sake of the demo, I'm going to quickly configure another instance and show you how that works. So here, I've just created the instance record, but I've not provided the connection details. So let me do that. So to do that, I'm going to open the connection alias. So this is the existing platform capability that you must be aware of. All right. So you see that the configuration template is set to basic auth with API key. So So I'm going to just click on create new connection and credentials and provide the details. So the username would be so I'm using a cloud instance. So the username in my case is the email address. And if you're using the on-prem, you could actually make use of the username and password. Basic authentication is what we support. So in case of cloud, if you want to get the API key, you will need to go to the user profile. I'll just go to account settings. And in the account settings, if you go to security, you get to create an API token. I'll just copy it and provide that as the API key. Okay, I think I provided. Okay, looks like I already have that connection. Okay, so all you have to do is just create that connection, and once you do that, you will find a button that says oops. So because I already have it connected, so that's why you see a disconnect button. Let me disconnect it and show you how that works. So what it does is it goes, and when I'm disconnecting, it goes and deletes the webhook from the Jira system, right? So because I clicked on it twice, you see that message. So now, so when you actually go and create this Jira instance for the first time, you will see the connect button. So if you hit on the connect button, what we do is we go and register the webhook in Jira, and you will see that the message saying connection is successfully established. So that's when we mark the status connected. So only when the status set to connected, we do support import and export between the two systems. So once you establish the connection, the next step that you would do is to discover projects. So what happens when you discover projects is we go and fetch all the projects from Jira into ServiceNow. And as we do that, we have a custom table called Jira projects. So we import all those projects into this table, right? So once you bring in all the projects, you will have to go and configure the project, each individual project, for import and export, right? So as we bring the project, we also bring in Jira boards. So we use boards to import and export sprints, because sprints in Jira is associated with the board. So if you want to bring in sprints from Jira into ServiceNow, you will need to provide the board details so that we'll be able to import and export sprints as well. Let's see how that works. So let me open one of the demo projects that I have. So I have the HR delivery project. Let me switch over to the. All right. So this is the instance that I have configured. So if you look at it, I have a project that says HR delivery project, and I have 27 stories in this project, right? So what I did was I checked this box that says enable import and also enable export. So when I check this box is when we actually import and export issues from Jira into ServiceNow, and also similarly from ServiceNow into Jira. So once you check these two boxes, you would have to create team integration settings. So we only support one team integration setting. So that's why you don't see a new button here. So if I didn't have the team integration setting, you would see the new button where I could go and create it. So let me create for another project and show you how that works. I'll just open employee portal 1. So I'll have to check these two boxes and save this record. So you see that as soon as I save this record, a new button called import issues starts appearing. So if I do import issues, it'll start getting the issues from Jira into ServiceNow, right? But then as you bring it in, if you want these stories to be associated with an assignment group, you will need to create the team integration settings. You could just click on new. And you can provide the board details. Like I said, we use the board details to fetch the sprints. And you would also assign it with, associated with an assignment group here. So the reason why we get the assignment group is to create the sprints, right? And also when you create a new story in ServiceNow, the way we determine whether to export that to Jira or not is using the assignment group. So when you create the story, we check if that assignment group has a team integration setting. And if it does, we export it to the project that it is associated with. So let's continue using this project. So I just created the team integration setting. And let me quickly go to that project here in Jira. All right. So you see that there are 3 stories in this project. So let me go and do import issues. So you'll need to provide a date range. So the date range is what we will use to fetch the issues. The query that we use is to get all the issues created or updated in this date range. So if you only want a certain set of stories to be imported, you could provide the date range and we'll bring only those stories. So the moment I hit import issues, you saw a notification that says an import request has been created. So what we do is we create this record that says import request, and then the integration hub picks up the request from here. So as soon as a record gets created, the integration hub kicks in the necessary flows to bring in all the stories from Jira into ServiceNow. So you see that we are bringing in sprints and also issues. So let's wait for this to complete. All right, so it's completed. Let's go to the stories. All right, so we did an import issues on this project, employee portal 1. So we have 2 projects imported. Sorry, 2 issues imported. So there are 3 here. Let me see why we have only got 2. Okay, usually it does work. Maybe it's the live demo because of which it's not working. So yeah, I've set up 4 other projects. I've also created I created a Scrum program. Let me go to the Agile board. So if I go to the Agile board, so there are 4 different projects that I've configured to import from Jira into ServiceNow. So let's quickly go to this project. So you see that there are 4 sprints set up, and each of these sprints have stories associated with them. And in the backlog, we have about 20 stories. So let me go to the sprint planning screen so that I could show you the same setup. So you see that we have stories here. There are 20 stories in the backlog for the ServiceNow HRMS group. And there are 4 sprints. If you notice here, there are 4 sprints here too. And sprint 1 has 5 stories, 2 has 4, and then 5 and 5 again. So if you see here, so we have 5 stories and 4 stories, 5 stories, and 5 stories. Now, let's say if you want to plan, right? So you could actually use either of these systems to plan stories to the sprint. So let me do that in Jira. So I could just select 3 stories and move it into sprint 1. So because sprint 1 is already started, we see this. And let me add a couple of stories to sprint 2. If I come back here and refresh this screen, those updates must be coming over in a moment. All right, So you see that the 3 stories that we added now is showing up here. And similarly, if I go to sprint 2, the newly added stories are showing up here, right? So, okay, let's say I want to remove it from the sprint and move it to the backlog. I could, or maybe the next sprint, I could do that. So what it does is it also triggers an update to Jira. Let's reload this page in a moment. And so if you want to check for troubleshooting purposes, if you wanted to check what is happening, what you could do is you could go to Flow Designer and look at the executions. So you see that we create requests to synchronize the issues between the 2 systems. So if you want to troubleshoot, this is the best way to do it. Go to the Flow Designer and open the flow, and then check what is happening there. So you can actually see it in detail. All right. So you see that the stories that we moved from sprint 1 to sprint 2, we moved a few stories here. So you see that the stories are showing up here appropriately, right? And let's see how this synchronization works. So let me go back to the Jira integration settings. All right. So this is the project that we were checking earlier, Servicenow HRMS, right? So if you open the Jira project record from the Jira instances, you will notice that there is a reference, related list called the table maps, right? So table maps is where you can actually provide the mapping between the issues in Jira to tables in ServiceNow. So let's take a look at it. So I'm gonna open this record, which has the story mapping. So this mapping says that the external table name story, we will need to bring an external, any story from Jira to the RM story table. And as we bring them, and similarly for exports as well, right? So this map is what we use for both import and export. So as we bring it in, we say, okay, these are all the fields that we'll need to bring in from Jira into ServiceNow. So out of the box, we have these fields mapped. You have the short description, you have the description, priority, assignee, and then epic link. So if there is any link between story and an epic, we do bring that in as well. And also any custom fields, right? So out of the box, we just have sprints. So if you have any custom field, you will be able to provide those mappings as well. So this, what we are seeing, this record is the table map. And the related list that we are seeing here is the field map. So let's drill down to look into the state mapping between the 2 systems, right? So now if you go to the status record, my instance seems to be slow right now. All right. So if you open the field map, this is the mapping between the status from Jira to the state column in ServiceNow. And you see that we have a related list that says choice map. So choice map is where we provide the mapping between the workflows in Jira to state choices in ServiceNow, right? So you could actually take a look at it. We have these internal mappings. So let's look at the stories. Okay, if you look at the states, right? So -6 maps to draft. So if you see this one, anything that is to do, it goes into either draft or ready state. So if the state is set to do in Jira, so you will see that we will always set it to the draft state, right? So we use the order number. So if you are mapping multiple states in ServiceNow to a single state in Jira, we honor the order number here. So if I create any new stories in Jira, then we will bring it in as a draft state. And similarly, in ServiceNow, we have 3 in progress states, right? So one is work in progress, and one is ready for testing, and another is testing. There are 3 in progress states, and we mapped those 3 in progress states here to 1 in progress state from Jira. So let's say if I go and create a custom workflow matching the states in ServiceNow, I could just provide the value 1 to 1, and any updates that we do in Jira or ServiceNow, we actually synchronize it both ways. Any questions so far?
So far, no questions in the chat window. If you guys do have questions, go ahead and reach out and put it in the chat window. Or if you want to unmute yourself, you can go ahead and ask a question right now.
Hi, Balaji. I'm Bala. So I have a couple of questions. Okay. So first thing, so do we have any reference between Jira and ServiceNow? For example, Jira is having a key, right? Can we see the key in ServiceNow tickets created, or
yes,
or vice versa?
We can, yeah. Okay, so if you notice in the story table, we have a column called external identifier.
Oh, okay.
So we've added a column called external identifier. So that is where we persist the Jira issue IDs, right? So if you look at it,
okay.
I have brought in the external key. So let me add only the columns that makes more sense. I just added all of them. So let me. Okay, so if you notice, right? So we have the Jira issue ID, and we also have a link to that issue ID. If you click on it, we'll take you directly to that story record.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
But we don't have a reference in Jira. But then if you want to add it, that would be fairly simple. I can show you how that works. So let me. So let's say I can add a custom field called ServiceNow number. Okay, apparently it's not showing up all the options. So you can just add
I understand.
Custom,
yes. Yeah, right.
You could just add a custom column, and then you'll be able to do the mapping.
Okay. Okay. My second question. Can I go to my second question?
Sure.
Yeah. Right. So in the beginning, you told we are using webhooks and we are using API keys also. So as far as webhooks are concerned, so they are not secured enough, right? So if you have a general webhook, right? So it does not bring the value based on the user access. So if we create an API key, so that will give us based on our permission, based on our user roles, right? So, but webhooks is not secured enough, right? So how it is webhooks are playing a role here?
Yeah, I can explain that. So if you look at the webhooks that we register, right? So if you go to system, and let's take a look at the webhook that we register. So if you take a look at the webhook that we registered, right? So we have a unique token number here.
Yes.
Right. So what we do is we actually validate that token number. We also know which instance can send that request. So if a request comes in from a different URL, right, with this particular token, we will actually reject that request. So we have that security built in using the policies here. So if you notice, this is where we actually go and configure the webhook registration and processing and all that stuff. So this is the webhook registry. So we create a unique token and then we register with that token.
Okay.
So if you're, when your security concern is with respect to the user, or is it respect in general? Like are you saying like,
for example, I am a developer in a project, so I have access to only 2 projects. So you are an administrator of a project and you may have all the project access, right? So if you set up the webhook, and because that webhook is for all issue types and all projects. But from my perspective, if I access this integration, like I should be able to access the 2 projects which I have access in Jira, right? So that is my concern, my question. Like, so will that webhook will override the permissions of the particular user? Or?
So the webhook, when we get the event, right? So based on the configuration that is provided here, we will process that request or not. Now, if you look at it, we have so many projects, but I've only configured 4 of these projects. So I've only configured, these 5 projects, right? So we will only process the events from these 5 projects, and any other projects that is sending us the events, we will discard those events.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, Balaji. Thank you.
All right. So let's. So we saw the
Balaji,
yes.
sorry. Is Luis here? May I ask some questions?
Sure.
Yeah. First is when you complete this Jira instance configuration, you said you click on Discover Projects to bring in the Jira projects, right? And then you have to do this manually always and configure, meaning every time I have a new project in Jira, do I have to do this discovery and do the setup of the project? Or is there a way to do this automatically?
So the Discover projects is just the first time.
Right.
From then on, if you create a new project, we will get a webhook event and we will create those projects automatically. So this is just the first time action.
Okay. Another question. Some customers, they use Agile projects in Servicenow, PPM, right? So they create stories as part of a project, and then they execute in Jira. In other case, they create the Agile projects in Servicenow, but the stories are created direct in Jira. So how would that work? First case, I have the stories associated to my project in Servicenow. This information goes to Jira as well? And if they create a story there in Jira directly, is this tied to the project in Servicenow as well?
Currently, that does not happen, but we are working on a release. We are working for the upcoming release, right? It could come out maybe sometime in Q2, where we will provide a hook to the user to configure that option, because currently the integration works purely with Agile product. If people wanted to integrate with projects, if ServiceNow projects, then we are providing an extension where the users can actually build on top of the out-of-the-box integration. A very minor enhancement if you do, then all you have to do is just modify the business rules slightly. So that way, you don't need an assignment group. Rather, if you create a project, if you associate it with a project, then we will start exporting it to the same project in Jira. Corresponding project in Jira.
Right.
So currently it is not, currently with whatever is there in the store, it is not available, but we are working on a release. We have targeted it for Q2. So yeah, when that is out, you will be able to do that.
Okay, makes sense. And based on that, would it be possible when I create a project in ServiceNow that's agile or hybrid to create the project in Jira as well? And then this
we can use
synchronization starts working from there directly.
We can create a flow, integration hub flow to do that. So currently that doesn't happen out of the box, but
Right.
you can create a flow to create a project for every for the moment a project is say approved, or if you have a certain parameter in the project, and
Yes.
when that event happens, then you could export that project to Jira, and any story that you create for that particular project, you could continue to push it to that project. So there'll be, you could decouple it from the assignment group. So that is what we are working towards. So currently that a lot of
that would
customers
avoid any manual steps, right? We could avoid
yes, that is correct.
Happen automatically. Okay, great, thanks.
All right. So this this project that I wanted to show you. So in this project, all right. So in this project, in addition to stories, epics, and stories and epics, I have also created a mapping for incident, and I want to show you how that works. So all I did was just created a table map for the incident. So I created a new issue type called incident in Jira. So I just created a mapping between that issue type and incident table in ServiceNow. And I mapped a few fields, summary, status, description, and priority. Status, I just mapped a couple of them, new and in progress. I didn't do the whole thing, just to show you how that works. This instance has become slow for some reason. I've just mapped to do and in progress, only these two states. And let's see how that works. All right. So I'm going to go to the HR delivery project. And I'll create a new incident. And I'll give it a higher priority and say create. All right. So it created the issue. Let's go back here and go to incidents. So you see that the incident that I created in Jira is showing up in ServiceNow. Let me open that up. As I was creating the incident, you notice that I provided the priority. What I did is I mapped the priority to impact, because priority in ServiceNow is a calculated one based on impact and urgency. So I set the impact as high. So that's why it's coming up as high. So in ServiceNow, let me go and modify this as say medium and go and mark this as in progress. I'll say working on the issue. And I'll say, okay, let me provide a call. So I updated the work nodes, I provided the impact and also the state. So let me also add an attachment to show you. Oh, okay. For attachment to work, I need to, on the incident, I need to do another setting, which I've missed. So let's go back here, check this. So you see that I changed the impact from high to medium. So you see that is updated. And similarly, I updated the state to in progress. So you see that the state is changing as well. So the state change happens both ways. So if I update it here, so the state change would happen in ServiceNow as well. Okay, you see that the state. All right. So the state changed here. And let's go back and check if the work notes came up. Yep. So the work notes that we made is also showing up here. So we bring it the way it is updated in ServiceNow. It says who in ServiceNow updated it, what time did they update it, and what is the work notes. And similarly, if I make an update here, and that would show up here.
Excuse me, on that note, that just sparked another thought. What about additional comments? Is there any bi-directional work with Jira on that one?
Additional comments as in?
Like customer visible notes, not work notes.
That. So I haven't tested this. Let me check if this works. So I will have to check if this one works or not, because I was assuming that they all go to the same table. But let me check that and then I'll come back to you.
Thank you.
All right. So let me also show you on the attachment front. So let me open the HR delivery project. Okay, I'm going to open this one. This was working on. Okay, so let me add an attachment to this. Right, so I just added an attachment, and if I go back to Jira and refresh this page, you will see that attachment would show up here as well. So you see that attachment is showing up. And if I add attachments here, or if I remove any of them, that would also be honored in ServiceNow. So let me do that. So I'm going to delete the one that we added in ServiceNow, and I added a new one. So if I go back here, so you see that the attachment got changed, right? So the one that we removed from Jira is gone, and the newly added one is showing up here. So let me also show you how creating new work items in ServiceNow gets exported to Jira. So the way you do that is like, as you create the stories, so as you create the stories, it's important that you populate the assignment group. If the assignment group is not populated, then we don't trigger the export. So let's say I select the ServiceNow HRMS group. Let me go to that project. So you see that the story that I created in Jira, sorry, in ServiceNow is showing up here in Jira. So yeah, similar to how I showed in the incidents, the state updates happen. So if I can update in either of these systems, and then the state would be synchronized appropriately. Yep, there you go. So any more questions? I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to show you for this demo. So if you have any questions, then I'll be able to answer them.
Balaji, one more question. So
Yes,
here in Jira, like if we have a workflow, post functions or workflow conditions, right? So will it handled by ServiceNow? Because the question is, will it trigger the transition or it will change the status itself? You got my question, right? So my understanding is that, so if we have a sequence workflow in Jira, so for example, once, starting from to do, in progress, maybe for review done, right? It is a sequence workflow.
Yeah.
Right? So from ServiceNow, if I have a status in to do, so can we change it to directly to done, or we have to go through the workflow?
In ServiceNow, yes, you can change it to done, but then because the Jira, even if I update through REST API, Jira actually honors the workflow conditions. So if you have a workflow defined like that, like you cannot transition from to do to done, then the update would fail. So then in that case, you will have to have similar business rules in ServiceNow.
Okay. Thank you, Balaji. That's fine.
Okay. Other questions? We have about 7 minutes left. Thank you, Christian, for joining. Any other questions from the group that's out there?
I'm sorry, I do have
go
one
for
more
it.
question. One thing I was, and I know this might be a dumb question, but one thing I was trying to wrap my head around was, I saw the differences between the out of the box and the spoke, but how, I guess, what is included in what? Because it seems like a no-brainer, you would do the out of the box integration, but why is there even a spoke option? If that makes sense.
The spoke provides you flexibility, right? So it provides, like, if you don't want that rigid rule of assignment group and things like that, then you could have spoke. The other is if you want to build something on top of out of the box integration, then you could leverage the spoke. Like, for example, there is an out of the box behavior where if, let's say, you have one project in Jira is associated with an assignment group in ServiceNow, and there is another assignment group in ServiceNow which is not associated to any project in Jira. Okay, so
Gotcha.
I mean, we had this. We were talking to one of the customers, and they brought it up. They said, like, hey, there is an incident. There is a team working on that incident in ServiceNow. So they actually went and assigned it to a group, and when they did that, then the issue got created in Jira. So then later they realized that that's not something they can fix. And there was another team that needs to look into it. So when they assigned it to a different team, what we do is we don't delete that issue from Jira because it is created in Jira. We don't want to delete it. We continue to push the updates. So they came back saying, hey, we want that issue to be deleted because it moved away from that assignment group. So what the Spoke provides that flexibility. I could actually go and build something on top of out-of-the-box integration to achieve the behavior that they wanted.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Great. And I've also too launched the poll there for you guys to go ahead and fill out as the kind of providing us feedback on the office hour that we just had with Jira. Any other questions last minute? We have about 4 minutes left with Balaji.
And there are some things that we have in our roadmap is to make that mapping simple, because currently the mapping takes a lot of effort, like creating the table maps and the field maps, because like you'll need to get the API. I mean, you'll need to fetch the API, look at the custom column details. That's a lot of work. We are actually working towards building a visualization that makes it easy for you to create the mapping between Jira and ServiceNow. So we are working towards that.
Is it planned for Q2 as well, Balaj?
No, we don't have a definite timeline on that because I mean, there is a UI shift that ServiceNow is going through. So we are still contemplating where should we build that UI.
Okay.
So that is definitely a challenge that we see with our customers, where they find it difficult to do that mapping. But once they understand how to do it, it's not so difficult.
Great. Well, we have about 3 minutes left. I thank you all so much. Definitely fill out that poll to provide feedback. Thank you, Balaji, for being the subject matter expert on this office hour. And for those of you, again, who are listening to the recording, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself, Charles Rayburn at ServiceNow, for any follow-up questions, et cetera, and we'll try to get those answered for you. Thank you guys so much. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Take care.
Thanks, Charles.